So the reading this morning is from John 2, verses 13 to 22. The Passover of the Jews was near, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple, he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and the money changers seated at their tables. Making a whip of cords, he drove all of them out of the temple, both the sheep and the cattle. He also poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. He told those who were selling the doves, "Take these things out of here. Stop making my Father's house a marketplace." His disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." The Jews then said to him, "What sign can you show us for doing this?" Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." The Jews then said, "This temple has been under construction for 46 years, and will you raise it up in 3 days?" And he was speaking of the temple of his body. After he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the word that Jesus had spoken. This is the word of the Lord. Well, Lisa, it's lovely to see you. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for asking me to come along.
That was really good of you. Thank you. Because you're a school teacher, aren't you?
That's right, yes.
Which school do you work at?
I teach Welsh at Ysgol Dyffryn Aman, which is a fairly large comprehensive school of 1,400 pupils in Ammanford.
Wow, okay.
Hmm.
They'll keep you busy. What's your subject?
I teach Welsh as both a first and a second language. It's a bilingual school, you see.
Ah, brilliant, brilliant. So it's been a difficult couple of months for you as a teacher, I would have thought. You've been the front line of a lot of decision making by the government from that. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, of course I can. Well, basically, it's been almost a year now. Last March, as you know, we all went into lockdown and we weren't able to go from home very much. And it was the same. There was no way, I ever dreamt that teachers would teach from home. It was, the technology is only quite recent, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's amazing, really, because a few weeks before all this came about, every single member of staff in my school were put on a training course for online teaching. So it was a huge relief, really. I hadn't had much experience of teaching online. We had no cause to do much of it in the past, and it was just for convenience sake, really. But it came really handy in March. It's been a very steep learning curve, to be honest with you, because initially, I'm sure some of the more confident IT people were doing live lessons from the very beginning, science department and so forth. And some of us who know a little bit more about teaching online probably taught live, but the majority of us, especially from my department, who aren't maybe as tech savvy as all that, we were just sending lessons to our pupils, and the conscientious ones were doing everything we were giving them. But unfortunately, and I think this was the case with many, many schools and subjects, that an awful lot of children weren't actually engaging at all. They hardly did any work for many, many months. So, they missed out massively. Now, we're back in the same situation from January, been teaching from home again. And the previous experience taught us a great deal, so we became a lot more confident. And I teach almost every lesson live now through Google Classroom, and we find that we've been having far more positive response because the children are able to interact with us. We can see them on the screen. And I feel that if we're talking to them directly and explaining the lesson to them, they get far more out of it and they're far more positive about the work. So we're getting, it's much more positive. It's not the same as being in the classroom with them, obviously, but, we've had to learn new ways of teaching. And yes, it's been an experience, definitely.
It sounds like you rose to the challenge there, Lisa.
We had to. It was a matter of, we have to do this, and we just got on with it, really. So, yeah. And of course, back in September, we actually went in to do face-to-face teaching. We were back in our classrooms. And I've got to be honest, I think myself and my colleagues were apprehensive because, we had been home for all those months. We were hearing how awful the coronavirus was, and it could have been very serious because a lot of us live with people who are shielding. So it was a concern, but I got to be honest, the school really raised to the challenge of keeping us as safe as possible because, they made sure every year group were in their own bubbles.
Brilliant.
And year 7 and 8 had their lessons at one time, and then their break was at a completely different time to all the other pupils. Different year groups were separated and so forth, So we had our lunch hour and our break times were completely different. It depended who you were teaching at the time, and it was just a very strange experience. But
it sounds like a lot of planning went into it, so that's brilliant to hear.
Yeah. To make
well done for that.
Kept as safe as possible.
Brilliant. So that's good to hear, because you're also a member of a church congregation.
That's right.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about your church and the role that you play and what it does in your life?
Yeah, well, it's a very important part of my life, I go to Llanfair Church Cwmgos, which is a very small church, a very friendly church. It's got only a congregation of roughly 24, 25 people, who attend regularly. And until lockdown, I used to prepare and deliver the intercessions. And we're a very sociable church where we did quite a lot of things together. So, for instance, once a month, we used to go to the local golf club for a Sunday lunch together. So it was a really good way of socialising with one another, isn't it, and getting to know.
Yeah.
And the LMA as well were invited, and certain other churches would come along as well. So, so our LMA is new, fairly newly formed.
Yeah.
And we've done quite a few social events in the golf club because our vicar, Dr. Caroline Jones, organised a couple of Christmases ago, actually, a Christmas reflection on the poetry of Christina Rossetti.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yes, very interesting. And, she used to try and get us to do lots of interesting things. For instance, we had a trip up to Cardiff to the National Portrait Gallery. And that wasn't just our church, it was the other church that she's involved with and other people as well.
Oh, wow.
And we were looking at the religious paintings. So, we do a lot of social things, really, not just church on Sunday, which is important, really.
Yeah, so it helps you in the community a little bit then, doesn't it? It gives you actually a community, the body of the church.
That's right, yes.
Oh, that sounds lovely. I have to come to one of your trips sometimes.
You'll have to.
So, as a church, though, what can we do to help support key workers like yourself and the families and children that you support?
Well, to be honest, I'm not quite sure what you could do to support me as a teacher, but like many churches do, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the community who could do with a lot of help at the moment. I know there are schemes out there to help people who haven't got, as much as others, who need help with food and so forth, and food banks have been run and churches are involved with that, so that kind of thing. But I think as far as schools are concerned, it would be nice if the church strengthened their links with the school through maybe assemblies and so forth. We certainly could do with more input in that respect, and any other schemes, that you could think of.
Oh, well, how are you doing assemblies at the moment?
We are actually doing assemblies online, yes. The head of years are delivering it online to every year group, once or twice a week, yes. I don't know what the content is like because I'm not involved in them, but it's a way of keeping in touch with the children, isn't it?
And I guess it's a way for the children to see children in other classes as well, because I guess
that's right. Yes, because you know you'd have your 7 on one day and then your 8 on a different day and so forth, isn't it? So it's nice for them to see each other, isn't it, and interact in that way.
Yeah, a bit of a difference from them, bit
Oh,
of a difference. Oh,
massive,
that's good.
yes.
Hmm. And you're also doing TFL. So TFL stands for Theology for Life, which is a theology training course. What difference has that made to your faith?
Oh, massive, because as you probably know, my faith is really important to me and it has been for a very long time. But I feel it's given me a different perspective on different aspects of the faith, and it's certainly deepened my understanding of the Christian faith. It's been magnificent, and I'm so pleased I joined because I've been very fortunate. As you know, we meet on Zoom on every Wednesday night, and the people in our group, they're lovely. I've never met them because this is an online course for us now this year, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
They come across as amazing people, and they're easy to talk to, and it's all about discussion, isn't it? It's important to discuss each other's points of view. And we've been exceptionally lucky through having you and Canon, because you've led us through the course, and it's been amazing. It's been a real eye-opener, and I love it. It's fantastic.
It's lovely to do group work where you can talk about your faith, I find.
Absolutely, yes, because you might have a point of view, but it's nice to see other people's perspectives, and you think, oh, yeah, maybe they got a point,
Yeah. And it's not a simple subject, is it? Because there's always different ways to interpret text.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
So in the reading we've used at the beginning this morning as well,
Yes.
it's quite a difficult reading, this one, of course. If you come to church regularly, you hear this reading obviously each year. But for people who've maybe never heard it before, it sounds a little bit like Jesus is having a bit of a temper tantrum. What was he actually doing, do you think?
Well, I think, first of all, that he had every right to be annoyed with what was taking place in the temple, because, it was completely disrespectful. It isn't supposed to be a marketplace, it's a place of worship, and you should treat it in that way. But of course, that happened, and that was ringing a bell probably in the minds of the disciples of something that happened in the Old Testament. It's a prophecy that came true, isn't it? That basically, from what I remember, there was a passion about what was taking place in the temple, if that's right.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
That's right, yes. And basically, if this happens just before Jesus is preparing his disciples for his, he's going to be crucified, isn't it, shortly after this. So it makes us remember, and the disciples remember, that he's fulfilling the prophecies, yes?
Yes.
Also, a very, very important point, he says that the temple is going to be destroyed and it can be rebuilt in 3 days. Well, that is incredibly significant, isn't it?
It is
a significant point that we have to believe and understand is actually that he's referring to himself. The temple is his body. Yeah. And of course, it was rebuilt in 3 days over Easter, isn't it? It's the story of the crucifixion, and that's what the whole point he's trying to make, I'm sure.
Absolutely. That's right. The moment you scratch the surface of that story, it starts to make a bit of sense, doesn't it? When we get away from just those. And so often Jesus uses these little parables, doesn't he, in his teaching?
Yeah, he does. So it's not a temper tantrum. I think there's a very deep purpose to all of this, isn't there?
I think you're right, Lisa. That's good. Thank you for that. That's cool. Now, we're carrying on forward, obviously, Lent is progressing quite quickly now, it feels, towards Holy Week as we look to Holy Week and then past Holy Week, to the year that's coming. Is there anything specific we should be trying to concentrate on as a church that will help the bigger community as we hopefully come out of COVID, do you think?
Well, in a way, what we have to think about is during this pandemic, we've all had to adjust our ways of doing things. And I've got to be honest, some churches have adapted to this new way of doing things tremendously well, haven't they? Because they have gone online, and I'm sure that was an alien concept for churches and makers as well as teachers, But I think we've realised that by going online and delivering services online, certain people that would never have stepped through a church have actually come to services and probably now come on a regular basis. I think the challenge, however, for the church is to try and maintain that when you open up properly and we're able to go back to church face to face, that obviously not all the people that are online are going to come back because they may be living hundreds of miles away, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that you can encourage them, especially the locals, to actually come to your services and show that it's relevant to their lives just as much now as it has been during this year, isn't it?
Yes.
I think also the church has got to be able to change and face the realities of the world we're living in. And I'm sure many churches already do it and have done it, but do a lot of outreach programs like Messy Church and food banks and mother and toddler groups, and just reaching out more to the community, because I think it's the responsibility, the social responsibility of the church to be able to relate to people and help people out in the community. In other words, practice what you preach. I think that's...
I think it's a very good point, actually. I think having been locked away for so long, people will want to get out, and it's a great chance for us all to get out and share what we've learned, isn't it, in the last year?
Yeah, because it's been such a challenging year for everybody, isn't it?
It certainly has. It certainly has. Yes, I'm looking forward to my inoculation, even though I don't normally like needles.
No, but I think by everyone getting the vaccination, it'll help us get back to more normal times and feel safer.
Yeah, and we can only hope for the best, can't we, for these things?
That's right, yes.
Cool.
But I think we've got every reason to feel optimistic about the future if we're prepared to embrace new ways of doing things, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And we've seen an amazing take-up. I mean, the fact that your industry has changed so quickly in 1 year.
Oh, it's been an eye-opener. It's just, I think we're doing things better now for the children, but I know a lot of children have suffered by not being in school. Yeah. Their mental health and things definitely has been affected. And they keep asking me, because I'm a form teacher, when we're going back, because I think they miss each other.
Yeah.
And contact with the staff as well, I'm sure.
Mm. Yeah, those little things, just walking to school together, is so important when the kids are able to actually go back and do it again.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we're all looking forward to having a shared meal together, aren't we?
Oh, yes. I can't wait to meet you guys properly, the ones on the course, because, we've been doing this since June, haven't we? And you feel as if you know each other, but it would be nice to actually meet.
Yeah, see what the rest of us are from our shoulders down.
Yeah, that's right. But it's a tremendous course, and I recommend it to everyone.
That's brilliant. Actually, it's a good idea. What I'll do is there's I think you did the introduction yourself, didn't you, last summer?
In June, July, and it's only because Canon Anne was doing a service which my vicar was listening in at, and she heard her talk about it, you see, and she told me about it, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be on the course now.
Oh gosh, good. Well, definitely somebody's hand was stirring the pot that time for you. That's
absolutely lovely. Yeah.
And in case you're watching today and you're thinking what the pot's been stirred for you as well, I'll put some links at the bottom of the comments as well, so other people might be interested in joining in. So that'd be great. I think they are running some this year as well, so it'd be good. So Lisa, would you join me in prayer?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, lovely. I was wondering if we could do the Lord's Prayer in Welsh, if you're willing to lead me.
Yes, of course I will. Yes,
that's
no problem.
Lovely. Thank you. Let us pray.
Okay. Ein tad, ar wnnwyd yn y nefoedd, sa'n taeddiau'r denw, deled y deyrnas, gwneler dywyllus, megis yn y nef, fel y ddeiar hefyd. Dyro i ni heddiw ein bara bynyddiol, a maddau i ni ein dyledion, fel y meddeiwn innau i'n dyledwyr. Ac nac arwain ni i brofedigaeth, aethyr gwared ni rag drwg, canis eiddo ti yw'r deyrnas, a'r nerth, a'r gogoniant, yn oes oesoedd. Amen.
Oh, amen. That's lovely, Lisa. Thank you. So we're going to do a little bit of Desert Island Disc, Lisa. Do you have a hymn, that's your favourite hymn?
Yes, I absolutely love Amazing Grace. It just speaks to me, to be honest with you, especially contemplating the fact that the person who wrote it was a captain of a slave ship, and he saw himself as a sinner, didn't he? And basically, Amazing Grace. It just explains it all, that we're all sinners, and that through God's amazing grace, we can be forgiven for anything and everything we've done. I just think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a beautiful song. Thanks again, Lisa.
No problem.